right, y'all, we're conspiracy cooking a little bit, and this is about, it's more about the media landscape and about how things, it's like, it's steadily, it's not like all of a sudden this happened. It's just like, I don't watch TV pretty much at all. And I only see it when I go over to like my parents' house or, you know, my surviving grandparents. So when we had, can you sit down at least? Yes, there we go, yeah. Let's see if I can show, he's like, so when we had the Bourbon Street tour tag, right? When we had that was the first time I had seen a lot of TV in a while, because I ended up at my parents' house and we were kind of watching at least some of the unfolding coverage, and that also did sort of include, at the time, the stuff with, is it Matt Livesberger? Probably pronouncing that poor man's name wrong, but y'all know, the stuff that ended up on the Sean Ryan show. And what ended up happening was that I am usually getting my news, when I'm paying attention to it, from, you know, the internet, obviously. And that's gonna be like, I'll see like headlines that pop up in the YouTube feed or whatever, and I'll kind of just like take note of the headlines, and I won't really watch any like in-depth coverage. But because this happened where I lived and it was kind of an emergency situation, and at least for a little while we couldn't find one of my family members, I was anxious to find out like, who do I need to call? Where do I, like, what, like, how do I, if we can't find a family member, where can we get more information about like what just went down and who got hurt? So I was way more invested in getting immediate coverage about the situation. That's issues now. We can pull this back up. So in my looking for that, I found one channel in particular that was like, that like what this channel does is like they can they make it look, I'm telling you, they make it look like it's some little like mom and pop, like grassroots, oh, we just happen to be doing this, bull fucking shit, because this is all these people do. And it's sort of like they have, and I'm sure there's probably some sort of like software or program or whatever, or apps that allow you to like jump on, like you can track, like, obviously you can track like that, because those apps have like been like in the forefront, where you can track like what registered things are in the sky. So if you are seeing something, you can look at this app and check to see if there is actually something in your area that is registered that maybe like you just don't understand. Like it is a registered craft or it's a drone, you can see it on these apps. And so there's a way for these people to track like news helicopters and stuff, and like get live feeds of certain like local things that are happening like all over the country. Because this particular channel, which now I'm not naming it because I don't want the smoke. Because a lot of the channels that I'm talking about are propaganda channels, and if you like start trying to like say something about them, they're extremely like, they will like send like I think a lot of them are bots. They'll send like attack bots, and like, but they're actual people, because there are real people who like watch these channels. They'll send those people after you, and because those people are very like prone to being slave-minded, no matter what like the talking points are, they will also be very prone to just like attack on command. And that's just what it is, and I just don't feel like dealing with that. But like, probably if you pay attention at all, you have seen these sort of channels pop up. And the most aggressive ones I've noticed tend, like they do, like the very machine-like ones to me, tend to be like way more on the right. And I notice like way more of those, but it's not that it doesn't exist on the left. It's just like there's a different style. because I was just like, where are these channels like for like more liberal people? And it's like less leftist and it's way more like liberal. It's way more like shit lib content. But it's not quite the same as the more like right-wing stuff, or the stuff that is very similar is just not popping up in my feed. But I do take note of it. It does exist. It's slightly different. And there doesn't seem to be as many, or not as many as I'm noticing. And so the reason why I ended up finding this channel was because of how quickly they jumped onto the live news and what I was able to do, and especially with what happened in front of the Trump Tower with the Cybertruck, okay? That happened, and since I was able to see it as it happened online, it was all of these other like non-mainstream people reporting on that very quickly, right? Like as it happened. And the thing about it is when I was watching, it popped up on YouTube. I noticed an article about it first somewhere, and then like a bunch of stuff, because I try and cross-reference. I was like, is this actually happening, or is this just like a clickbait thing? And all of a sudden, footage started popping up of the Cybertruck on YouTube. And I was like, well, this is happening, but they're not reporting on it, because we were watching like a national news station at my parents' house. And I was like, well, they're not reporting on this, why not? And then when I was refreshing to get more information on the Cybertruck thing, when I refreshed, a lot of the videos that were posted of what was going on just like vanished. And I was just like, well, what's that? Like, people were posting coverage of what was going on outside of Trump Tower, and it was being like taken down. And so I was like, oh, okay. So now we've started with that again. So suspicious. And so I was noticing that I wanted to track, once I started noticing that, what I wanted to see was how long it took for the thing that I was seeing online to pop up on the national news, and the time lag between a real important, what became an important news story, right? The time for it to go from the internet to mainstream news in any kind of substantial way was around 6 hours. And so, and here's the thing about that. My parents only watch Fox News. They only watch Fox News. And they would only watch something online like the Daily What, like they only listen to Ben Shapiro, okay? Which should tell you something. But so, being that the thing that was happening at Trump Tower to me, could very easily be negotiated as like a right-wing talking point about something negative that potentially the left was doing to Trump or whatever. I was surprised that it wasn't picked up a lot quicker by those particular channels. So it's not some sort of we were watching obviously a leftist news source or a more shit-lib news source wouldn't be talking about that as quickly. It was the agendas would have aligned from my perspective, okay? But we've been kind of knowing, right? That mainstream media gets things way after the fact. Kind of by the time you're seeing something on YouTube, TikTok, even though that really is going to go away. TikTok has already been it's already been a thing. I just know, but I'm just not. There's just stuff that I don't need to know that quickly, but I just happen to know, and I was like, okay, well, if somebody's watching this unfold on TikTok, they already, but it's the lag time tends to be shorter for news. YouTube will grab it within an hour or an hour or two. And then with the mainstream media, it's hours and hours and hours or days or even weeks, or it'll just never be reported, right? So being able to watch that in real time was interesting to me. And then the sort of news, weird network to me It's these networks of like channels that are like on the same payroll, that are not advertised as being on the same payroll, but they're all like boosting each other. They're all promoting like the same products, but they're trying to make it seem like really organic. And like they all have kind of the same talking points that they repeat over and over and over and over again with every single story that they come up with. Like it's an obvious propaganda channel. It's a propaganda channel. It's a propaganda network that are all boosting like one like big like name. Usually there are like multiple big names, but these particular channels that I'm talking about, that it's not the live news thing. Like the live news thing seems to be like totally separate, but they're also a propaganda channel. It's just not the same thing as this network that I'm talking about. This network that I'm talking about is like, it's all former intelligence people, former like military people. They're usually preppers. They're very, very like right-wing, patriotic. All of the talking points are like, you know, illegal immigration, DEI, like all that kind of stuff. But they're all like kind of boosting not only each other, but also specifically right now, at least, Sean Ryan and the Sean Ryan Show. Okay. So, why does this matter? It matters to me because what is particularly ghoulish about what is going on right now, and it has nothing to do with like left or right dynamics. It's like across the board. It's just, I'm noticing it way more in this particular avenue because it's like more glaring. It just seems more like blatant. And I'm just like, how are people like not seeing this? Like, okay. And it was something that was going on with the mainstream media and these kind of like grassroots that are not grassroots channels, and then the viewer, which is, there has been throughout history this steady progression of how war is covered within like news outlets, right? Before we had cameras, it was all like written reportage and people were like drawing pictures, and then like cameras came around, we were getting like certain images, but until cameras like until you got like something that wasn't a fucking tintype or a daguerreotype, right? Because you're like setting up a daguerreotype in combat, like, so you had to be able to take the picture quickly, right? So there was like this whole nother dimension that opened up like once people could do that, and people were seeing like static images. But then what the first big thing that ended up happening that really changed things was how the Vietnam War was covered. Seeing actual footage of war, like not in real time, but it was like, this is what it looks like. This is what is going on. This is what you are not seeing. And that was back when mainstream news was kind of like counterculture, because nobody was seeing that. The atrocities of that kind of shit. It was like even World War II, like that was very filtered because you could see things. I think like you would get newsreels in theaters, but that was before, like that was all very curated. It was designed to create a certain image of the war and about how that looked. And with Vietnam, a lot of that fell apart. And then the next big thing that happened was all of these home TVs, right? And I want to say, like, it was building up, like it was happening in Desert Storm and stuff like that too, but it didn't to me, or I didn't really notice it because I was much younger, right? When 9/11 happened, all of a sudden, what you were seeing was like, this was kind of the birth of 24-hour news coverage, because when I was super duper young, like the news, was incredibly boring, and that could just be because I was very, very young and all I cared about was like cartoons and like stuff like that. But like the news was like at the most like an hour and a half every day. Like you got your local news, and then it was like national news, and then like on a particular day it was like 60 minutes. And it was all extremely like, and this is what happened here, and da 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 da. So unless you were like an adult, right? As a kid, you were not like, once the news came on, you were like, oh, I'm out of here, I don't care. They were like talking about like, I don't even know that they were talking about the stock market, maybe, but they were talking about like actual policies. It was all very like sedate. It was not dramatic. It was very, very boring. And it was just like, for the most part, factual reportage, or like what we knew at the end of the day, it was not as it was unfolding. And then like, there was this little limited period that was obviously set aside from the rest of the coverage, where somebody would do like maybe 10 to 15 minutes of like editorializing. It was obvious opinion based on what they had reported factually that we knew of to that point. But it was always very like, here is what we know. Boom, we are cutting that off now, and here is this opinion. Here's this opinion. And then what that turned into was 24/7 coverage, and it was as it happened. And that was an entirely new thing. And South Park even had like a thing about that, where people turned into couch zombies that were like watching this war unfold in real time. So it was just sort of like, we're watching the war like a show. And that was like this whole new like other thing, right? But that was before the internet became what it is now. Because the internet was a thing, it was not the same if you were not there. It is not the same thing as it is now, because there were no like iPhone, there were no devices, no smart devices, no nothing. And so now the next kind of like big shift, because all of that like 24 like as it happens coverage, and like everything's a show, and we got to keep everybody's attention, and we got to make everything dramatic, and we got to make a story where there's no story, and we're giving the opinion all the time because we've got to create all of this content that doesn't need to exist. There's no reason for it. We have all of that, and that's been slowly building over the years. And now we have social media, and we have Twitter, and most people who would be watching me will understand kind of what went on 2015, 2016, opened up this entirely new fucking thing with the internet, and how people on the internet are driving the shit just as much as any sort of mainstream thing. And that was an entirely new, now we have the alternative, and it's not that alternative media didn't exist, but it was like on the radio, it just was not as dynamic as it is today. And even then, there was a barrier to becoming like an alt media person, because like Alex Jones has been doing what Alex Jones does like for a very long time. But you had to have like some kind of production knowledge. You had to have some kind of like contacts or like knowledge to be able to like get in at the radio, or like however he was getting on TV, if he was on TV, whatever. You had to have something. Now, literally all you need is a phone. And that's it. And you're like your own little alternative media source if you're doing it like well enough, or you have enough like charisma behind you for people to care about how you're like talking about something. And people just start paying attention to you. And so that was the last big thing until now, because nobody, that was like when Trump, like I still cannot believe that like people were trying to tell me that the internet had no impact on Trump being elected. Like I cannot even believe, like I need to just stop like being bothered by people who are like obvious fucking idiots. And I'm not being uncharitable when I say that. They just are obvious fucking lunkhead idiots. Like some people are just like that, and they're just like, that had nothing to do with, and it's like, okay. So we had all of that occur. And that was like a curveball to, yes, a lot of establishment media and also a lot of establishment politicians. Trump really was that. And I know like people will be like, Trump isn't an outsider, like he is one of the elites and blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing is like, I understand where those people are coming from, but he was not one of the, I'm gonna go ahead and say like pre-selected people. He wasn't. He was an outsider to that, even though like they all kind of like know each other. I just went off on a whole fucking tangent, but I'm supposed to be talking about like this media shit. Oh, it's explaining why Trump is actually an outsider. It's because Trump's rise had to do with the jack. I have already said that on this channel. And so Trump was not on the pre-approved list of who became the leader of the free world, right? That's why he is that outsider. But you, in fact, probably you can't have someone taking a position like that, or it'd be really freaking hard for someone who has like no money and nothing to be able to become the type of person who I'm talking about. The end game project, what America was supposed to be, that I don't know that it can be anymore based on what I'm talking to you about, if what I'm saying is true. But that's how Trump was an outsider. And it was a great big signal to a lot of people that like, uh-oh, something happened. Something just happened. There was a shift. And most of it, like, I'm describing that as like the dark timelines, and I'm not wrong, but it also has to do with the amount of like power that went from one place to another, which it just did the same thing again, because the jack is no longer with Trump and all that, you can tell. I've been saying the power is with the people, but it's sort of like, that's when things like really get like, ooh, like tense, right? Because that's when you're talking about potentially a revolution occurring. Because like the jack, what the jack loves to do is to set him up and then knock him down. Loves it. And that can take a really long time. And what I would also impress upon you is that when it comes to the jack, it has nothing to do with justice at all. Even if something works out in a just sort of way, the jack does things because the jack gets bored. And that's all there is to it. So I really would not, nobility or like a just cause, like, no, like the reason why the jack has done this is because the people that the jack was working with bored them. And they haven't accomplished the end game that they were supposed to accomplish or that they wanted to accomplish. And they're all old has-beens, and the jack does not like that. The jack is a very like lively, like energy. And so they're just going to do whatever the fuck it is that they want to do. And this happens to be it right now. So, the internet and how the internet affected media and the election and politics and everything else back in 2015, 2016, that was the next big step. And now we're at the new next big step because everybody learned from what happened in 2015, 2016. Everybody did. And so now the new thing is World War III is already happening. And not only is it a reality show, but it is monetized and you are one of the main characters. That's what's going on. And that is horrific to me. But it's what is happening. You can watch it happen on this like genre, because he's like in Romania and is just like, well, what if World War III? It's like, it's so bizarre. So it feels like he's including you on like espionage shit that's potentially going on with like World War III, and they're advertising off of it. It's very weird. And the other extremely ghoulish thing that I noticed was that on the other channel, nothing to do with like Sean Ryan and all this little like affiliated network, that has way more to do with like World War III and whatever's going on with like the drones and aliens and all of this stuff. That's all like whatever this thing is. There's this other thing going on where like I was watching, it was like live coverage on this particular propaganda channel that I've like been observing. And it was like one of the FBI's final like press conferences on the tourists on Bourbon Street. And as part of this live press conference, they wheeled out this like big screen And it was the press conference where they were talking about this person like having like, oh, like he was wearing meta glasses. And they started showing all of this footage on the screen, and I was sitting there watching it, and like the press conference itself, like the thing that the FBI and the state of Louisiana put together, I was sitting there watching that. I was like, this fucking shit looks like an ad. Because they were making sure to like get the guy like in the mirror, like with the glasses, and then showing like, oh, and here's all the footage that he took with the glasses, and it's him like riding around the city and like, look at this and look at what you can record. And I was like, bitch, this feels like an ad. This feels like an ad that the FBI, like, what is this? And then this live propaganda channel, Misha, I know my boy. This live I was watching the little chat in the live propaganda channel, and I'm telling you, there are bots in these channels that are there to drive the conversation in the way that the channel wants the conversation like to go, and to have like to influence the actual people who are participating in the chat, because it's a mix. And so the second that they started showing the footage of like the meta glasses and everything else, I suspect bots started popping up, meta glasses, what? Meta glasses, question mark. And I was just like, and then the moderator, one of the owners, whatever, of the channel, pops up in the feed and goes, like, they had this whole thing that was just like, the meta glasses are made by blah, 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 and they're like Ray-Bans, and they cost $350, and here's the link. And I was just like, this is a fucking ad. They just did an ad placement at a press conference for an actual terrorist attack. And they're like, it was the freakiest thing. I was like, I had to stop. I stopped after that. I was like, no, it's an actual ad. It is an actual ad. And that one disturbed me way more than what was going on with like the Sean Ryan show, because that is like fairly obvious. Like you can track them. They're like shilling a particular like product. It's like a phone, and they all like reference each other, and they're like, it's like one big like LARP over there, but it's like a LARP that is also involving actual real life. Actual people die. Like, that's what's crazy to me, is that I do not in any way think that every event is fake and it's all staged and blah, blah, blah. It's like, these things actually happen. But what like these channels are designed to do is to take these real life horrible events and do like ad spots on them that like aren't being disclosed. And I'm just like, I don't know if this is like happening like in tandem with the FBI or the CIA or whatever, or if it's like a purely organic thing that like they just happen to show the meta glasses, and it's just like, oh well, why not just like, you know, throw the sales. Like I feel like that's too much of a coincidence. It's too much of a fucking coincidence. And so my sort of dystopian thought process with all of this is sort of like, this is the new thing, right? That it is now a weird sort of Truman Show in a way, but not in the way that the Truman Show like literally was, right? I mean, if you can follow me, because I'm even having trouble like explaining it. But it's like, it's all around you now. Like before, it's like, we're still sort of like observing. And then 2015, 2016, it was like the spark of, we're starting to interact. And now it's like, bitch, we are dissolving that fourth wall. Now you get to be a part of the conflict. You get to be a part of it all. But like, you've got to pick like your little avatar, right? Because like, obviously not everybody can be Sean Ryan, okay? You though can, you know, watch Sean Ryan's show and feel like you're getting like the exclusive, right? The exclusive information. And so I'm just like, you're getting the information from that channel before you're getting it from a mainstream channel. And the thing is, it's like some of the information, or a lot of the information, is going to be right. And so the more that the information is right, and the mainstream media is not talking about it because they aren't like intelligent. Like, this is crazy to me. It's crazy to me. But I mean, why wouldn't they do that? Like, why wouldn't they? But it's just like so, like, it's just so fucking gross. What will make me severely depressed, right? Especially when it comes to like the alien disclosure topic, but really just all of it in general. All of it in general, right? Even if we're talking about, because I've said like it kind of doesn't matter like what's real and what's not real. What matters is what is going into the public consciousness. And so debunkers will get like really like bent out of shape about like whistleblowers going in front of Congress and saying certain things. And they're like, well, it's just crazy. It's crazy and there's no evidence. So these stories, like, it doesn't mean anything. They're just crazy people going up there and saying crazy shit and like blah, blah, blah. And it seems like it's meaningless. It's not meaningless. The fact that it is on the congressional record, the cabals are attacking me. They don't care. If they exist, they don't care about me. The fact that it exists on the congressional record, someone asking about human-alien hybrids, like, that is actually a big deal. It might not seem like a big deal because the public at large is not, like, having that conversation, but just the fact that it is now there is actually a fucking big deal. Because once we get to a certain point, with all of, because if you go look at that genre, it's like there's like a whole bunch of stuff about the freaking super secret space for, like, it's like, I don't want to say these people's names because they're like super litigious, but it's like the people who are on like Guy and TV who are like, it's like rhymes with Baby Bill Doc, okay, and like Lori Schwood, like that stuff, like that narrative is now on this show. And it is being associated, like I said, on other conspiracy cooking videos. It's being associated or like put like in line with things that are actually real, with true shit. And what I'm saying is that regardless of what, because like there's somebody on that, like he had somebody about like exorcism on there and all that stuff as well. So it's just like, regardless of whether it is true or not, that it is being introduced to the public alongside of things that are now being like shown as demonstrably true, that is real information. It's sort of like, where is that narrative going? And the issue with it is that if there's never any like evidence, like especially with like the alien stuff, okay? If there's never any evidence produced, or like the beings never pop out, or like whatever, if there's like no conscious awareness of that, what this all could ultimately depressingly be is simply a way to capture the audience that is invested in the UFO topic, to sell them products, to sell them a narrative, to capture that vote. Because like a lot of those people are like QAnon people, and they were like rogue in like they were not controllable. And so what people in positions of power had to understand was those people are in fact a force to be reckoned with. And what we ended up with last time was January 6th. Okay, so we need to create a system that is designed to control those people, that is making them feel like they're not outsiders, or they are outsiders in the best way, and that they in fact have a power, they have a voice. We're validating their experiences. So what experiences are they going to be validating? The experiencer experiences, alien abductees, the people who have the you know, I don't know what it's called. It's like killing, like it's like a secret space super soldier program where you like kill aliens. Those people, people who are like the very, very charismatic Christians who like warfare is a real thing. The tribulation is a real thing because that's like the demons, exorcism stuff. That'll also be SRA people. It will probably also be people who purport TI, like targeted individual. Okay, all of that stuff, if they are validating it when no one else will, those people are going to be very devoted to whoever that is. And they're going to be way more inclined to do what that person says. And so at the end of the day, if none of this is real, and it's all just a narrative, the end game for organizations and systems like that is simply to like perform a completely different type of warfare now that has a completely other like profit stream, and like there's another revenue stream attached to it now that involves you. It's an entirely different way to conduct warfare. It's an entirely different way to introduce like intelligence into public consciousness, and it's an entirely different way, I'm saying, like to alter reality. But it's still sort of like, I don't like, how long could someone possibly do that without like actually like producing like a being, right? Like, unless that's what this is, like they're going to produce like at least the craft, right? I don't know. But like sort of in order, like there's only so long that you can really like grift on a narrative. Because if you talk to somebody, right, who is like into ufology from like back in the fucking 50s or whatever, they'll tell you that like we've all, oh, we're getting disclosure this year. Oh, we're getting disclosure. Oh, the aliens are popping out this year. That has been going on for a very long time and nothing's really ever come of it. However, if you look at how the conversation has changed and who's talking about it and what you can talk about in this day and age without like completely losing all credibility whatsoever, that is drastically different than what it used to be like in the 50s. And so I'm interested in that. And I'm also interested in like, where exactly are we going with this? Because now I'm popping off about certain things and I'm just sort of like, I am not like, I'm interested in like the actual beings, okay? Like that's what I'm interested in. As far as I'm concerned, I'm giving information on some sort of actual reality of some sort of actual beings. But if nothing pops off, I do not want to be part of, like, that's why I'm so nervous in talking about like the alien stuff, is because like these same things have been said over and over and over again, and like historically, if you look back on it, nothing has ever really happened. Not in any like substantial way. But like I'm just noticing a lot of things now that seem different. And so it's just like, I don't know, maybe something will pop off. Maybe we will see something. But if nothing happens in the first quarter of 2025 that is like significant, it's sort of like I am not throwing my hat into the alien UFO, like we're gonna grift on, oh, disclosure's happening, like, no, really, for real guys, it's happening like next year. Or like, because like there's a lot of like, for some people, it's like they're saying like January, like, or like 2025 in general, or like the first quarter 2025. And then there are other people who are like, it's like 2026, 2027. And then it's like people who are saying 2030. And so I'm just like it feels like the same old thing, but like slightly heightened and slightly different. And I'm still interested in like tracking it, at least for me, for the first quarter of 2025. And then depending on what happens at the end of that, I would be having a different conversation about this entirely. Because like, if it is literally all just to sell people stuff and introduce like intelligence in the community in a different way, and to like control people through some weird like wartime reality show, like you get to feel like a super spy, like that's so weird. That is so aggressively weird. And you know what's like even super fucking more weird is I could see them starting to do shit like Ender's Game style stuff. Like, will you, like if you play this game, right, what you're actually doing is like when you score these points, like these points go towards like a particular soldier. Like I could see it. And so like you're never actually being conscripted into like the military, but you are playing like, it would have to be like an MMO of some sort, where something that you're doing in the MMO is having like a real-time effect somehow. And I'm not saying that you would be controlling like a drone that would be like shooting at somebody. I'm saying that like somehow your playing of the game would in real life somehow contribute to like a particular soldier or a particular like branch of the military. Like I don't know how they would work that out, but I could see that shit happening. I could absolutely see that shit happening. And then it's like this whole other like dimension of like Second Life, wartime, espionage, and then you'd pay for it, of course. So it's like monetized, like I don't like, and there are like loot boxes on it. And I'm just like, and here's the thing, people thought I was insane a decade ago when I was saying, you know, the way that we're going with AI and like all of this stuff, you're eventually gonna have to like trademark your fucking face, because people are gonna be able to like just capture your image and like start like they're gonna be able to like make weird like deep fake corn of you. And everybody who I was talking to at the time was just like, oh, Allison, you're so crazy. So I don't know, I could be talking about something that's maybe like 10 years off, but I just sort of like don't really pay much attention, at least to the like really like aliens. Like I understand why people are like not like, until it pops off in real life. I completely understand that one. Why people would be like, no, that's goofy, bitch. Like unless you're someone who's like way more of a believer, or you're an experiencer yourself and all that stuff. I can understand why people just aren't gonna fuck with that. But at least for the stuff that's completely like technology based, like, you know, I don't think anything that I just said is outlandish at all. And we're already seeing it like in real time. And if that's what all of this amounts to, I will be incredibly depressed.